Commander Zexthara sat in her office aboard the massive enforcement ship Stellar Guardian. The blue lights from her computer screen cast strange shadows across her purple-scaled face. She had been working for 12 hours straight, reading reports about crimes across the galaxy. Most days were like this, endless paperwork about theft, smuggling, and worse things that happened in the dark corners of space. A soft chime sounded from her door. "Enter," she called out, not looking up from her work. Lieutenant Krivak stepped inside, his forearms carrying a datapad. His orange skin looked pale, which was unusual for someone of his species. "Commander, we have a situation." The Crimson Claws have been active again. Zexthara finally looked up. The Crimson Claws were bad news. They were a group of criminals who traveled from planet to planet, stealing whatever they could sell. They had been quiet for months, which should have been good news. But quiet criminals usually meant they were planning something big. "What did they hit this time?" she asked, already reaching for her coffee. The brown liquid was one of the few things from human space that she actually enjoyed. It helped her think clearly during long cases. "That's the problem, Commander. They hit a planet called Earth. It's in the outer rim, barely cataloged. The species there is called humans. They're primitive, still using chemical rockets and basic electronics." Krivak's voice was steady, but his eyes showed something that looked like worry. Zexthara frowned. "The Crimson Claws don't usually bother with primitive worlds. There's not much profit in it. What did they take?" Krivak set down his datapad and pressed a few buttons. A holographic display appeared in the air between them. "That's what makes this strange, Commander. They didn't take gold or rare metals or technology. They took ... Well, you should see for yourself." The hologram showed a recording from a Crimson Claw ship. The quality was poor, but Zexthara could see figures moving around what looked like a large building. The building was surrounded by green grass and had a sign that her translator couldn't read properly. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "It's a human education facility. They call it a school. Young humans go there to learn." Krivak's voice was quiet now. "Commander, the Crimson Claws took the young ones. They took human children." The words hit Zexthara like a physical blow. In all her years of law enforcement, she had seen many terrible things. But taking children was a line that most criminals wouldn't cross. Even the worst pirates and smugglers knew that harming young ones brought heat from every civilized government in the galaxy. "Show me the rest of the recording," she said, her voice harder than before. The hologram continued. Zexthara watched as armed figures in red armor moved through the building. They carried weapons that glowed with energy. The humans inside the building fought back, but their weapons were primitive. They had metal, projectile weapons, and some kind of chemical sprays. What shocked Zexthara wasn't the difference in technology. It was how the humans fought. She watched as adult humans threw themselves at the armored raiders, using their own bodies as shields to protect the smaller humans behind them. She saw one human female grab a young child and run, taking energy blasts in her back rather than let go of the child she was protecting. "Stop the recording," she said suddenly. Krivak paused the hologram. "Commander, there's more. The raiders got away with approximately 30 young humans. Intelligence suggests they're being sold in the black markets." Zexthara stood up and walked to the large window that looked out into space. Stars dotted the darkness like tiny diamonds. Somewhere out there, 30 small beings were scared and alone, taken from their families and homes. "Tell me about humans," she said without turning around. "They're a young species, Commander. They only discovered space travel about 50 years ago. They have one planet, Earth, and a few small colonies. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They're not part of the Galactic Council. Most species don't even know they exist. What else?" Krivak looked at his datapad. "They're carbon-based, like many species. They live about 80 to 100 years. They have 2 genders and reproduce by pairing. They're omnivores, eating both plants and meat. They seem to be social creatures, living in groups they call families. And they're young? Human children are born helpless and need care for many years. Much longer than most species. They can't survive on their own until they're almost fully grown. The adults spend enormous amounts of time and resources raising them. Zexthara turned back to face her lieutenant. In your opinion, what will the humans do about this? Krivak's four shoulders moved in what his species used as a shrug. Probably nothing, Commander. They're primitive. They don't have the technology to track the Crimson Claws across space. They don't even know about the black markets where their young are probably being sold. Most primitive species just accept losses like this and move on. Show me the rest. Of the recording, the hologram started again. Zexthara watched as the raiders finished loading their cargo. But as they prepared to leave, something unexpected happened. More humans arrived. These ones were different. They moved with purpose and coordination. They carried better weapons and seemed to know how to use them. Who are these humans? She asked. The translator calls them police and military. They're the human equivalent of law enforcement and defense forces. Zexthara watched as the human defenders fought with a desperation she had rarely seen. They weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to save their young. She saw humans continue to fight even after taking wounds that should have stopped them. She saw them work together with a coordination that spoke of training and discipline. The raiders eventually escaped, but not easily. Several of their ships were damaged, and the recording showed at least 3 raider bodies left behind. The humans had made them pay for what they took. Commander, Krivak said quietly, there's something else. After the raiders left, we picked up several transmissions from Earth. They're trying to contact anyone who will listen. They're offering everything. They have in exchange for help getting their children back. Zexthara felt something twist in her chest. She had 2 children of her own, both grown now and serving in the enforcement division. But she remembered what it felt like to hold them when they were small, to feel responsible for their safety and happiness. What does Command want us to do? She asked. Nothing, Commander. The Crimson Claws are outside our jurisdiction when they hit non-council worlds, and humans aren't part of the galactic community. Officially, this isn't our problem. And unofficially? Krivak was quiet for a moment. Unofficially, Commander, I think we both know that what happened here was wrong. But the Crimson Claws are dangerous, and we don't have the resources to chase them across half the galaxy for beings who aren't even our citizens. Zexthara walked back to her desk and sat down. She stared at the frozen hologram, showing the moment when a human adult had thrown himself between the raiders and a group of children. The human's face was clear in the image, determined, terrified, but absolutely unwilling to let the children be harmed. Lieutenant, I want you to do something for me. I want you to find out everything you can about humans, not just the basic facts. I want to know what makes them different. I want to know why they fought so hard for their young. Commander, with respect, why does that matter? They're primitives. They can't help us, and we can't help them without breaking about a dozen regulations. Zexthara looked at her lieutenant with eyes that had seen too much in her long career. Because, Lieutenant, something tells me that we're going to hear from the humans again. And when we do, I want to be ready. She turned back to the hologram, studying the faces of the humans who had fought so desperately to protect their children. Something about their expression reminded her of an old saying from her homeworld, beware the fury of a gentle species. For the first time in her career, Commander Zexthara wondered if the galaxy was about to learn what that saying really meant. 3 days after seeing the recording, Commander Zexthara made a decision that would change everything. She stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the civilian clothes she rarely wore. Today she wasn't going to be a law enforcement officer. Today she was going to be someone else entirely. Lieutenant Krivak waited outside her quarters, holding a bag of credits and forged identification documents. His 4 arms moved nervously as he watched her prepare for the most dangerous mission of her career. Commander, I still think this is a bad idea, he said for the 10th time that morning. Going to Nexus Prime undercover is dangerous enough, but trying to infiltrate the slave markets? If they discover who you are, they'll kill you. Zexthara checked her hidden weapons one last time. If I don't do this, Those children will disappear forever. The Crimson Claws work fast. Every day we wait is another day those kids spend in hell. But why do you care so much? They're not even our species. Zexthara stopped and looked at her lieutenant. Because they're children, Krivak. And because no child should have to go through what I saw in that recording. The trip to Nexus Prime took 2 days. The planet was a nightmare of crime and corruption, where anything could be bought if you had enough credits. Zexthara had been there before on official business, but never like this. Never alone and pretending to be someone she wasn't. She rented a room in a cheap hotel and spent the first day learning the current prices in the slave markets. The information she gathered made her sick. Children were being sold like property, their prices based on their species, age, and appearance. The younger they were, the higher the price. On the second day, she found what she was looking for. A crime lord named Veximer was advertising exotic entertainment for his wealthy clients. The description mentioned a rare human specimen, very young, perfect for amusing guests. Zexthara spent hours getting ready for the meeting. She wore expensive clothes and jewelry, trying to look like a wealthy collector with too much money and not enough conscience. The character she created was disgusting, but it was the only way to get close to the children. Veximer's compound was a fortress of black stone and metal. Guards with energy weapons stood at every entrance. Inside, the walls were covered with expensive art stolen from a dozen different worlds. The air smelled of strange spices and fear. Lady Zexkira, Veximer greeted her, using the fake name she had given. He was a huge creature with green skin and teeth like knives. I hear you're interested in my newest acquisition. I'm always interested in rare specimens, Zexthara replied, forcing herself to sound casual. Especially young ones, they're so much more entertaining. Veximer's laugh was like breaking glass. This one is special. A human child, barely 6 years old. They're such an emotional species. Every time he cries, my guests find it hilarious. Zexthara felt rage building inside her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. May I see him? Of course. But touching costs extra. They walked through corridors filled with guards and weapons. Finally, they reached a large room where Veximer's guests were enjoying themselves. The room was full of aliens from different species, all of them rich and all of them cruel. In the center of the room was a small platform. On it stood a human child. The boy was tiny, probably weighing less than most of the weapons the guards carried. His clothes were torn and dirty. His face was streaked with tears, but his eyes were what caught Zexthara's attention. They weren't broken, they were angry. Dance, little monkey, Veximer commanded. Dance for the nice people. The child didn't move. He just stood there, staring at the crowd with defiance that seemed impossible for someone so small. I said dance, Veximer repeated, his voice getting dangerous. The boy finally spoke. His voice was quiet but clear. No. The crowd laughed, thinking this was part of the entertainment. But Zexthara could see the truth. This child wasn't performing. He was fighting the only way he could. What's his name? She asked. Danny, Veximer replied. Though I don't know why it matters. He won't need a name much longer. Children don't last long in this business. What do you mean? They break easily. Too much stress, not enough food, constant fear. Most of them die within a few months. But they're fun while they last. Zexthara felt something cold settle in her stomach. I want to buy him. He's not for sale. He's too entertaining. But you can rent him for a few hours if you want. I'll pay double your asking price. Veximer's eyes widened. Double? For one small human? You must really want him. I collect rare specimens. This one interests me. Triple, Veximer said, his greed overcoming his caution. Done. The transaction took an hour. Zexthara had to pretend to be excited about owning a child while signing papers that made her feel sick. But finally, Danny was hers. She took him to a private room, away from the crowd. The boy stood in the corner, watching her with suspicious eyes. Hello, Danny, she said softly, kneeling down to his level. My name is Zexthara. I'm here to help you. You're lying, he said. All the monsters lie. I'm not a monster, Danny. I'm a police officer. I'm here to take you home. For the first time, something changed in the boy's expression. You're really police? Yes, I'm here to find all the human children who were taken from your school. Danny's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't cry. Can you find my sister Lucy? They took her too. She's only 8. She gets scared when she's alone. Zexthara felt her heart break. I'll find her, Danny, I promise. She's not here. I heard them talking. They sold her to someone who does experiments on kids. They said she was going to help them learn about humans. The rage that had been building in Zexthara's chest exploded into something cold and dangerous. Someone was experimenting on children. On human children who were far from home and completely helpless. Do you know where they took her? A place called the Research Station. It's run by someone called Dr. Kexmal. He buys kids from different species and cuts them open to see how they work. Zexthara had heard of Dr. Kexmal. He was a mad scientist who operated outside the law, selling his research to the highest bidder. Most governments wanted him arrested, but he moved around too much and had too many powerful friends. What about the other children from your school? She asked. Danny sat down on the floor, looking suddenly very tired. Jake got sold to a mining company. They use kids to go into small spaces where the adults can't fit. Emma got bought by a rich lady who wanted a pet. The others? I don't know where they are. How do you know all this? I listen. Adults think kids are stupid, so they talk around us like we can't understand. But I understand everything. I remember everything. And when I get home, I'm going to tell everyone what happened here. Zexthara looked at this small human child and felt something she had never experienced before. It wasn't just anger at the criminals who had taken him. It was admiration. This boy had been through hell, but he hadn't given up. He was still fighting, still planning, still believing that someday he would go home. Danny, I need you to be brave for a little while longer. I have to get you somewhere safe while I find the others. I want to help you find them. You're 6 years old. This is too dangerous. Danny stood up and walked over to her. Lady, they took my sister. They took my friends. I don't care how old I am. I want to help. Looking into his eyes, Zexthara saw something that made her understand why the humans had fought so hard against the Crimson Claws. These weren't just any children. These were human children. And human children, apparently, were something special. Okay, Danny, but you have to promise to do exactly what I say. I promise. Good, now, let's go find your sister. As they left Vexamer's compound, Zexthara realized that everything she thought she knew about humans was wrong. They weren't just primitives who couldn't defend themselves. They were something else entirely. Something that might be more dangerous than anyone realized. And if what Danny said was true, if humans really did remember everything and planned to tell everyone what happened, then the galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about what happened when you took human children. The research station floated in the darkness of space like a metal spider. Commander Zexthara watched it through the viewport of her stolen ship, feeling sick to her stomach. Somewhere inside that station was Lucy, Danny's 8-year-old sister. Being used as a test subject by Dr. Kexmal, Danny sat beside her in the pilot's chair, his small hands gripping the armrests. He had been quiet during the 3-day journey, but his eyes never stopped watching the stars. Zexthara had tried to get him to sleep, to eat, to act like a normal child. But Danny wasn't normal anymore. The things he had seen had changed him. Is that where Lucy is? He asked, his voice steady despite his age. Yes, but Danny, I need you to stay on the ship while I go get her. This place is dangerous. Everything is dangerous now, Danny replied. But Lucy is my sister. She's scared. She needs to know I'm coming for her. Zexthara had spent the last few days learning about human families. What she discovered amazed her. Human children didn't just live with their parents. They formed deep bonds with their siblings, bonds that lasted their entire lives. They protected each other, cared for each other, and would risk everything for each other. Tell me about your family, she said as they waited for the station's security patrol to pass. Danny's face lit up for the first time since she had rescued him. Dad works at a place that builds things. Mom teaches other kids at a different school. Lucy is my big sister. She's really smart and she reads me stories every night. She always checks under my bed for monsters before I go to sleep. What about your friends at school? Jake is my best friend. We play games together and he shares his lunch with me. Emma is really good at drawing. She draws pictures of dragons and gives them to everyone. There's also Ben and Lisa and Tom and Katie. Denny's voice got quieter. They're all gone too, aren't they? I'm going to find them all, Danny, I promise. Why are you helping us? We're not your people. Zexthara thought about that question. A week ago, she wouldn't have been able to answer it. But now, after seeing what these children had been through, after watching Danny's courage and determination, she understood something important. Because you're children, she said finally. And children should be safe and loved, no matter what species they are. The security patrol moved away from their position. Zexthara activated the ship's stealth systems and began moving toward the station. She had studied the layout for hours, memorizing every corridor and room. Dr. Kexmal kept his subjects in the lower levels, where the screams wouldn't disturb. His work, the docking bay, was empty except for a few maintenance robots. Zexthara checked her weapons one more time, then looked at Danny. Remember what I told you. If anything goes wrong, if I don't come back in 2 hours, you fly this ship to the coordinates I gave you. Lieutenant Krivak will be waiting there. You're coming back, Danny said with absolute certainty. You promised to find Lucy, and humans always keep their promises. How do you know that? Because that's what my dad always said. He said a person is only as good as their word. And you gave me your word. Zexthara felt something warm spread through her chest. This small human child trusted her completely, even though he had every reason to trust no one. You're right. Danny, I'm coming back with Lucy. The station's corridors were cold and sterile. Zexthara moved through them like a ghost, avoiding the security cameras and guards. She could hear sounds coming from the laboratories, mechanical noises, computer beeps, and sometimes things that sounded like crying. She found the detention area on the 3rd level. The cells were small and dark, designed to hold test subjects between experiments. Most of them were empty, but in the 4th cell she found what she was looking for. Lucy was smaller than Danny, with long brown hair and eyes that had seen too much. She was sitting in the corner of her cell, hugging her knees to her chest. When she saw Zexthara, she didn't move. Lucy? Zexthara whispered, I'm here to help you. Go away, Lucy said quietly. You're just another monster. You're going to hurt me like the others. I'm not a monster, Lucy. I'm a police officer. Danny sent me to find you. Lucy's head snapped up. Danny? Is Danny okay? Is he alive? He's alive? He's safe. And he's waiting for you on my ship. Lucy started crying, but she still didn't move. You're lying. Danny is dead. They told me he was dead. They said all the kids from my school were dead. They lied to you, Lucy. Danny is very much alive. He told me about the stories you read him every night. He said you always check under his bed for monsters. Lucy's eyes widened. Only Danny knows about that. Nobody else knows. He also said you're really smart and that you take care of him. Lucy stood up slowly. Are you really police? Yes, and I'm going to take you home to your family. What about the other kids? What about Jake and Emma and Ben and Lisa and Tom and Katie? I'm going to find them all. But first I need to get you and Danny to safety. Zexthara opened the cell door and extended her hand. Lucy looked at it for a long moment, then slowly reached out and took it. Her hand was so small and cold that Zexthara felt anger rise in her chest again. What did they do to you here? She asked as they moved through the corridors. They wanted to know how humans work. They took my blood and scanned my brain and made me do tests. They said humans were interesting because we don't give up, even when we should. What do you mean? The doctor said most species, when they're scared and hurt, they stop fighting. They just accept what happens to them. But humans keep fighting. Even when there's no hope. He wanted to know why. Zexthara thought about the recording of the school attack. She remembered the human adults throwing themselves at the raiders, fighting with primitive weapons against advanced technology. They had fought because they had no choice. Their children were in danger. Did you tell him why? I told him it's because we love each other. Humans fight because we want to protect the people we love. Even when we're scared, even when we're hurt, we keep fighting because love is stronger than fear. They reached the docking bay without being detected. Danny was waiting exactly where Zexthara had left him, his eyes fixed on the airlock. When he saw Lucy, he ran to her and wrapped his arms around her. I knew you were alive, he said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. I knew you were okay. I wasn't okay, Lucy replied, hugging him back. But I knew you would come for me. I knew you wouldn't leave me. Zexthara watched the reunion and felt something she had never experienced before. She was watching the power of human love, and it was stronger than anything she had ever seen. These children had been through hell, but they hadn't broken. They had survived because they loved each other. As their ship left the research station, Lucy told them about the other children. Jake had been sold to a mining company on the planet Corvex. Emma was being kept as a pet by a wealthy collector on Luxuria Prime. The others were scattered across the galaxy, sold to different buyers for different purposes. We have to find them all, Lucy said. We can't leave anyone behind. It's going to be dangerous, Zexthara warned. Some of these places are heavily guarded. We don't care, Danny said. They're our friends, our family. We don't leave family behind, Lucy nodded. That's what humans do. We take care of each other. We protect each other, and we never give up. Zexthara looked at these two small humans and realized something important. She had thought she was rescuing them, but they were teaching her something far more valuable. They were showing her what it meant to love someone so much that you would risk everything for them. Okay, she said. We'll find them all. But first, I need to contact my lieutenant. We're going to need help. What kind of help? Lucy asked. The kind that comes with big guns and lots of backup, Zexthara replied. Because I have a feeling that word is spreading about what happened to you. And if I know anything about humans, your parents are probably looking for you. Danny grinned for the first time since his rescue. My dad always said that nobody messes with his family. I think the monsters are going to learn what that means. As they flew through space toward their next destination, Zexthara realized that the galaxy was about to discover something that would change everything. Humans weren't just another primitive species. They were something special, something dangerous, something that loved so fiercely that they would tear apart the stars to protect their children, and somewhere out there, human parents were coming to get their kids back. The mining planet Corvex was a nightmare of smoke and fire. Giant machines dug into the ground day and night, pulling out precious metals while spewing poison into the air. Commander Zexthara watched the planet grow larger on her screen as they approached, feeling sick about what they would find there. Danny and Lucy sat behind her, holding hands and staring at the ugly planet. In the past week, they had rescued 3 more children. Emma had been found on Luxuria Prime, kept in a cage like an animal by a rich collector who thought human children were exotic pets. Ben had been rescued from a fighting ring where criminals bet on battles between children from different species. Lisa had been found working in a factory that made weapons, her small hands perfect for assembling tiny parts. Each rescue had been harder than the last. Each child they found was more damaged, more scared, more broken by what they had experienced. But they were still human children, and they still loved their families, still believed they would go home someday. Is Jake really down there? Danny asked, his voice small and worried. According to our information, yes, Zexthara replied. But, Danny, this is going to be the most dangerous rescue yet. The mining company uses the children for work that adult workers can't do. They go into small spaces where the tunnels are too narrow for adults. What if the tunnels collapse? Lucy asked. Then the children die and they just buy more children, Zexthara said, the words bitter in her mouth. It's cheaper than making the tunnels safer. The children were quiet for a moment. Then Danny spoke up. My dad always said that people who hurt kids are the worst kind of monsters. He said good people have to stop them, no matter what. Your father sounds like a wise man, Zexthara said. He is, and he's coming for us. How do you know that? Danny looked at her with eyes that were too old for his face. Because he promised he would always protect us. And humans keep their promises. Before Zexthara could reply, her communication system beeped. Lieutenant Krivak's face appeared on the screen and he looked scared. Commander, we have a problem. A big problem. What is it? The humans have found us. They're here in our space and they're asking questions. Zexthara felt her heart stop. What kind of questions? They want to know where their children are. And Commander, they're not asking anonymously. Show me. The screen changed to show a recording from the main enforcement station. A group of humans in military uniforms stood in the docking bay, surrounded by alien security forces. The humans were outnumbered 10-1, but they didn't look scared. They looked angry. One of the humans stepped forward. He was tall and strong, with gray hair and eyes like ice. I am Admiral Pete Harrison of the Human Starfleet. We are here to collect our children. The station commander, a blue-skinned alien, named Vexkara, looked nervous. Admiral Harrison, we have no authority over criminal activities in the outer systems. Your children were taken by pirates. We cannot help you. Cannot or will not? Admiral Harrison asked, his voice deadly quiet. We do not have the resources to track down every criminal organization in the galaxy. I'm sorry about your children, but they are probably dead by now. The recording showed what happened next. Admiral Harrison moved so fast that the security guards couldn't react. In 3 seconds, he had disarmed 2 guards and held a weapon to Commander Vexkara's head. Let me explain something to you, Admiral Harrison said, still speaking in that quiet, dangerous voice. Those children you're talking about are not just random kids. They are our children, our future. And we will tear this galaxy apart to get them back. You're threatening a galactic law enforcement officer, Vexkara said, trying to sound brave. I'm making a promise, Admiral Harrison replied. We know our children are alive. We know they're being sold in slave markets. And we know that some of you people are involved in the trade. Now you can help us find them, or you can get out of our way. But if you try to stop us, we will go through you. The recording ended. Krivak's face reappeared on the screen. Commander, what do we do? The humans have ships we've never seen before. They're using technology that shouldn't exist. And they're not following any of the normal rules of diplomacy. Zexthara looked at Danny and Lucy, who were watching the screen with wide eyes. That's your Admiral Harrison, she said. That's not our Admiral, Danny said. That's my dad. Your father is an Admiral? He is now, Lucy said. He used to build things. But when we got taken, he joined the military. He said he was going to learn how to fight in space so he could come get us. Zexthara stared at the children. Your father learned space combat in 3 weeks? Humans learn fast when they're angry, Danny said. And Dad is really angry. The communication system beeped again. This time it was a direct message to Zexthara's ship. Admiral Harrison's face appeared on the screen. When he saw Danny and Lucy, his expression changed from anger to something that looked like pain and joy mixed together. Danny? Lucy, are you okay? We're okay, Dad, Lucy said, tears streaming down her face. We knew you would come for us. I promised I would always protect you, Admiral Harrison said, his voice breaking. I'm sorry I let you get taken. You didn't let us get taken, Danny said. Bad people took us. But we knew you would find us. Admiral Harrison looked at Zexthara. You're the alien who's been rescuing our children. Thank you. How did you know? We've been tracking every rescue. We know about the crime lord Veximer. We know about the research station. We know about the mining operations. And we know that someone with law enforcement training has been getting our kids out. What do you want from me? I want you to keep doing what you're doing. But I also want you to know that you're not alone anymore. The human fleet is here, and we're going to end this. Admiral, you can't just attack every criminal organization in the galaxy. You'll start a war. Admiral Harrison's expression went cold again. Commander, someone already started a war. They started it when they took our children. We're just going to finish it. The other species won't stand for it. They'll unite against you. Let them try? Do you know what we discovered while we were learning about your galaxy? Most species don't fight very hard when their children are taken. They accept it as a cost of doing business. They move on, they forget, and humans don't. Humans never forget, and we never forgive anyone who hurts our children. The screen changed to show space outside the mining planet. Zexthara gasped. A fleet of human ships had appeared from nowhere, surrounding the planet. They were smaller than most galactic warships, but there were hundreds of them. How did you build so many ships so quickly? She asked. We didn't build them, Commander. We converted them. Every human who had a ship volunteered to help. Cargo ships, passenger ships, even private yachts. We turned them all into weapons. You're going to attack the mining operation? We're going to shut it down. And we're going to do it in a way that makes sure everyone in the galaxy knows what happens when you take human children. Lucy grabbed the communicator. Dad, there are other kids down there. Not just Jake, kids from other species too. I know, sweetheart. We're going to save them all. What about the people who work for the mining company? What about the guards and the supervisors? Admiral Harrison was quiet for a moment. Anyone who participated in using children as slaves will be arrested. Anyone who tries to stop us from getting those children will be treated as an enemy combatant. And if they surrender, then they'll live to face trial. But Lucy, I want you to understand something. We didn't come here to negotiate. We didn't come here to follow galactic law. We came here to get our children back, and we're going to get them back. The attack began an hour later. The human fleet moved like a swarm of angry insects, fast and precise. They didn't try to destroy the mining facilities. Instead, they targeted the communication systems, the weapons, and the ships that might be used to escape. Within minutes, the mining operation was cut off from the outside galaxy. The human ships landed and soldiers poured out. They moved through the mining tunnels like they had been planning this for years. Zexthara watched from her ship as the humans rescued not just Jake, but dozens of other children from different species. They treated all the children with the same care, the same gentleness, the same determination to get them to safety. Why are they saving the alien children too? She asked Danny. Because they're children, Danny said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And my dad says that anyone who hurts kids is a monster, no matter what species the kids are. As the rescue continued, Zexthara realized something that made her feel both hopeful and terrified. The humans weren't just rescuing their own children. They were declaring war on everyone who participated in the child slave trade, and from what she had seen, when humans declared war, they fought to win. 6 months after the attack on the mining planet, Commander Zexthara stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of different species, all talking at once. The noise was deafening, but she could still hear the anger in their voices. They were angry because everything had changed. The humans had kept their promise. In just 6 months, they had destroyed or captured every major criminal organization involved in child trafficking. The Crimson Claws were gone. Dr. Kexmal was in prison. The mining operations that used child labor had been shut down. The slave markets had been raided and closed, but the other species weren't happy about it. They were scared. The humans are out of control, shouted Ambassador Vexkane from the Stellar Republic. They attack without warning. They ignore galactic law. They refuse to follow proper diplomatic procedures. They're dangerous, added Representative Krianom from the Trade Federation. They've destroyed billions of credits worth of property. They've disrupted trade routes. They've made it impossible to do business in the outer systems. Zexthara listened to the complaints and felt disgust rise in her throat. These people were angry because the humans had stopped criminals from hurting children. They were more worried about their profits than about the safety of innocent young ones. The humans must be stopped, declared Chancellor Vexthal from the mining consortium. They're setting a dangerous precedent. If every species starts taking the law into their own hands, we'll have chaos. What law? Zexthara asked, her voice cutting through the noise. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to her. "What law are you talking about, Chancellor?" she repeated. "The law that says it's okay to kidnap children as long as they're from primitive species? The law that says child slavery is acceptable if it's profitable? The law that says we should ignore crimes against children because they're too expensive to investigate?" "Commander Zexthara," warned the council president, "a ancient being called Vexandra, you are here as a witness, not as an advocate." "Then let me witness," Zexthara said, walking to the center of the chamber. "Let me tell you what I witnessed in the past 6 months." She activated a holographic display. Images filled the air above the chamber. Pictures of the children she had rescued. Videos of the slave markets. Recordings of the mining operations. I witnessed 30 human children being sold like property. I witnessed an 8-year-old girl being used as a test subject in illegal experiments. I witnessed a 6-year-old boy being forced to entertain criminals for their amusement. The images changed, showing the rescue operations. Human soldiers treating alien children with the same care they gave their own. Human doctors healing young ones from different species. Human teachers helping traumatized children learn to trust again. I also witnessed humans risking their lives to save not just their own children, but children from dozens of other species. I witnessed them spending their own money to heal and feed and protect young ones who weren't even their own kind. "That's not the point," interrupted Ambassador Vexkane. "The point is that they acted without authority. They ignored proper channels. They took the law into their own hands." "And what did the proper channels do?" Zexthara asked. "Where was the Galactic Council when children were being tortured? Where was the Enforcement Division when kids were being sold in slave markets? Where was the authority when young ones were dying in mining tunnels?" The chamber was silent again. Zexthara could see the uncomfortable expressions on the faces around her. They knew she was right, but they didn't want to admit it. "The humans did what we should have done," she continued. "They protected children, all children. Not just their own." "But they're primitive," protested Representative Creanum. "They don't understand how the galaxy works. They don't know about proper procedures and diplomatic protocols." "You're right," said a new voice from the back of the chamber. "We don't understand." Everyone turned to see Admiral Pete Harrison walking down the aisle. He was still wearing his human military uniform, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Behind him walked Danny, Lucy, and the other rescued children. "We don't understand," Admiral Harrison repeated, "how civilized beings can allow children to be hurt and do nothing about it. We don't understand how advanced species can know that kids are being tortured and decide it's too expensive to stop it." He reached the center of the chamber and stood next to Zexthara. "We don't understand how anyone can hear a child cry for help and choose to ignore it because of proper procedures." "Admiral Harrison," said President Vexandra, "you and your people have caused considerable disruption to galactic commerce and law enforcement. You cannot simply ignore established authority." "Established authority failed," Admiral Harrison said simply. "Your authority allowed our children to be taken. Your procedures let criminals torture kids for profit. Your system made it legal to buy and sell young ones like they were property." "The galaxy is complex," President Vexandra replied. "There are many considerations. Economic factors, political relationships, diplomatic consequences. We cannot simply—" "Stop," Danny said, stepping forward. The entire chamber looked down at the small human boy. He was only 6 years old, but he spoke with a confidence that silenced beings who had lived for centuries. "You're talking about money," Danny said. "You're talking about politics. You're talking about business. But you're not talking about kids." "Child," President Vexandra said in a patient voice, "you don't understand how complex these matters are." "I understand that bad people took me and my friends and hurt us," Danny replied. "I understand that you knew about it and didn't stop it. I understand that my dad and the other humans had to come save us because you wouldn't." Lucy stepped forward to stand beside her brother. "We're not asking you to understand us," she said. "We're telling you what's going to happen." "And what's that?" asked Ambassador Vexkane with a mocking tone. "Humans are going to keep protecting children," Lucy said. All children, from every species. And if you try to stop us, we'll go through you. That sounds like a threat, Chancellor Vextel said. It's a promise, Admiral Harrison said. We've learned something about your galaxy in the past 6 months. Most species will abandon their children if it's too dangerous or expensive to protect them. Most species will look the other way when kids are being hurt if it's profitable to ignore it. And humans won't? Asked President Vexandra. Humans will burn down the galaxy before we let anyone hurt our children, Admiral Harrison said. And, in the past 6 months, we've discovered that we consider all children to be our children. Commander Zexthara watched the faces around the chamber. She could see fear, anger, and confusion. But she could also see something else, shame. These beings knew that the humans were right, but they were too proud to admit it. What do you want from us? President Vexandra asked finally. Partnership, Zexthara said before Admiral Harrison could answer. I want the Galactic Council to formally partner with humanity to protect children throughout the galaxy. That's impossible, protested Ambassador Vexcane. Humans aren't even members of the galactic community. Then make them members, Zexthara said. Give them the authority to do what they've already been doing. Let them create a task force dedicated to protecting children from every species. And if we refuse? Asked Chancellor Vextel. Admiral Harrison smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Then we'll keep doing what we've been doing. But we won't ask your permission anymore. We won't worry about your procedures. We won't care about your politics or your profits. You would risk war with the entire galaxy for our children? Admiral. Harrison looked down at Danny and Lucy, then back at the council. Yes, without hesitation. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then President Vexandra spoke. Very well. The Galactic Council will establish a joint task force for child protection. Humans will be granted membership in the galactic community, with full authority to investigate and prosecute crimes against children of all species. And Commander Zexthara will lead the task force, Admiral Harrison added. I will? Zexthara said, surprised. You saved our children when no one else would, Danny said, tugging on her uniform. You kept your promise. You're family now. Looking down at the small human boy, Zexthara felt her heart swell with pride and love. I accept, she said. Then it's settled, President Vexandra announced. The Joint Task Force for Child Protection will begin operations immediately. As the council session ended, Zexthara walked out of the chamber with Admiral Harrison and the children. The hallways were filled with representatives from different species, all talking quietly among themselves. Do you think it will work? Admiral Harrison asked. It has to, Zexthara replied. Because if it doesn't, the galaxy will learn what happens when you make humans choose between their children and everything else. Danny looked up at her with a smile. Don't worry. It'll work. Now that everyone knows what humans do when kids are in danger, nobody will want to hurt children anymore. And if they do? Zexthara asked. Then we'll remind them, Lucy said simply. As they walked toward their ship, Zexthara realized that everything had changed. The galaxy had learned that humans were different. They had learned that humans would sacrifice anything to protect their children.